Now, what I've been trying to do myself is to work my way through these groups of emotions of unworthiness and the groups of emotions that surround this issue of self-love. So I'm trying to be more and more loving with myself. The operative word is trying for myself. The reason why is because I'm not yet getting at all of the causal emotion inside of myself as to why I still feel unloving about myself. Does that make sense? And this is the same issue many of you are facing. Many of you are facing with this issue of self-love, the fact that we know here that we need to love ourselves more. Do you know what I mean? We know here that we need to act more lovingly towards myself, but there's still this emotion in me that says, I'm not worth it, or I'm not valuable, or nobody cares about me, or those kind of emotions that are still in here. And it's those emotions that have to come out of me before I will actually be in a space where I can fully love myself. Now, because of that, it's very, very difficult to progress from a condition of sin into a condition of abandonment. Because one of the biggest things we have to deal with is the next thing I wanted to discuss. And that is the law of forgiveness. One of the things I've had to learn myself, and I'm still in the process of doing it, is learning to forgive myself for not being the person that I wanted to be, or that I feel I should be. And many of you need to do the same for yourself. To forgive yourself for all the things in the past that have happened that you weren't happy with what you did. You see, part of forgiving yourself, remember, is to feel all of your own emotions about the past. Remember, most of these emotions we haven't felt. What we've done is we've denied them, suppressed them, controlled them, and pushed them all down, right? What we need to do is to feel the feelings, which is a process of forgiving ourselves. Now, most of us on the path learn how to forgive another person before we learn how to forgive ourselves. But the reality is that until we forgive ourselves, we can't really forgive anyone. And so what I would suggest for you, and this is something that I'm trying to practice myself, is to get all of those things that you're disappointed about yourself about, and all of those things in your life that you're really unhappy about and you feel ashamed of doing, and all of those things in your life where you feel like, you've just been a bad person or been terrible towards other people, and all of those things, just gather them all together and allow yourself to talk to God about it, all of those things. And allow yourself to go through this process of forgiving yourself for those things. Now, when you do that, you'll feel a lot of emotion. You'll feel a lot of underlying emotional feelings. And often the biggest emotions that I've had to process myself have been these groups of emotions about how bad I feel I am. And for many of you, it's the same. For many of you, the thing that's actually stopping divine love from entering you as much as it could enter you is because you are unable to do what God has already done for you. What God has already done for you is forgiven you. God did that the moment you did any of these things. But you have been unable to forgive yourself. Can you see that? And so you hold on to shame. And when you hold on to something like shame, all it needs is a little pinprick, where somebody puts a little pin in you and says, "Here, see this shame here," and you react violently because, they've just exposed your shame. But if you'd forgiven yourself for your own shame, would you react violently anymore? No. And when you're upset because somebody just exposed an emotion in you and you start hurting yourself because of your law of attraction still bringing you crap into your life and all of those kind of feelings, if you had loved yourself, do you feel you would feel that emotion anymore? No. Can you see how The act of forgiving yourself is just going to be such a powerful, powerful thing that happens. Now, most of us avoid forgiving ourselves for lots of different reasons. But some of the most primary reasons of very deep childhood harm that's been dumped on us emotionally from our environment about how bad we are. You're never going to amount to anything, that kind of emotion. You're never going to be as good as that person over there. Every single thing almost in this life is about competition. Remember the school sports days? How many of you actually won an event? Okay. The rest of you, how did you feel when they won that event? Did you feel as good as somebody or worse than somebody? For many of us, we felt worse. The whole idea of competition is about creating someone who's worse than the other, isn't it? Setting up who is the best automatically means that there's someone that mustn't be the best, right? And so these feelings, like we finish up carrying around these whole groups of feelings inside of ourselves where we're just not as good as what we ever wanted to be. And then we punish ourselves every time we don't achieve what we believed we should have achieved. And as a result of that, we get into this state where we can't forgive ourselves. And we're carrying around this burden of what we should have been that constantly affects us in every single thing that we do. And then, of course, the law of attraction's there to expose that emotion, right? And so we get a lot of events saying to us, no, you're not good enough. No, you're not good enough again, and so forth, because we just don't want to feel the emotion. We don't want to go through the process of forgiving ourselves for not being as good as what we thought we should be, or when it really gets down to it, for not being as good as what our environment or our parents thought we should be. That's really where it came from. So, like yourselves, I'm working my way through this law of forgiveness, this forgiveness of myself for not being the person that I once was. Now, that brings up the next part of this law of love, and that is the law of mercy.